In this tutorial, we will set up and populate the Maria Insurance Agent Administration database using the command line and the Eclipse Data Resource Tools. For my YouTube students, there will be a link in the description to my Udemy course where you will be able to download the source code for all the examples. These are the steps we will take to get our insurance administration database populated. First, we will create the insurance database using the Maria database command line. Then we will refer back to our previous Maria database setup tutorial and stop our old database and start the new database with the MariaDB command line. We will reuse our refactored Maven Archetype Project. Inside the workspace, we will set up an Eclipse database connection to our newly created Maria database insurance database. Then we will populate the insurance database inside Eclipse with SQL Scripts. Now, if you recall, we have previously downloaded and installed the Maria database, and this is the example to create a new Maria database using the administrator prompt command line. So we will revisit this and we will create a new database specifically for our insurance administration application. Let's open up an administrator command prompt. We say run as administrator. We change into our Maria database bin directory. Now in our previous tutorial, we ran the database that we've created from the command line with the console command. So let's try that again. It looks like the database is up and running and listening on port 3306. So now we'll move to another administrator command prompt and we will run the command line console. We will enter our password, which is secret. And now we'll run show databases with the semicolon. And that looks good, so we'll exit out and then we will delete this sample database. To stop the command line runner, we do Control-C. Now we'll go back to the web page to see what we need to do to delete this database. Now the web page example actually has the database starting as a service and then stopping as a service and then deleting the service and then removing the entire directory that we've used to set up our database. So let's do this. Let's go back and start this database as a service. It says start pending. Now to actually text the services in Windows, we can go to the Windows Task Manager. And this is the Task Manager. We'll go to the Services tab and search for the MariaDB service. And here it tells us that the service is up and running, which means we should also be able to use a command line client to access the database. So let's go ahead and do that. And we are back with our command line client, so we can repeat our show databases. And now we're actually accessing the service, so we'll exit out of here. So what we'll do now is we'll stop the service, delete the service, and then delete the directory. So first let's stop the service. Service stop. So let's look in the Windows Task Manager. It says the service is stopped. Now we will delete the service. Service delete. Now let's see if we can find it in the Windows Task Manager. It looks like it's completely removed, which means we can now go and remove the directory. So if we look under the DB directory, we see all sorts of files here that MariaDB created. So we can just right click and delete. And that means we've completely deleted the database that we've set up in our previous tutorial. Now we will go back to our administrator command line and create our insurance database. Our database creation was successful, so let's start it as a service. Let's check our Windows Task Manager. We have it up and running, so let's use the console command line client to access this database. Password secret. And that looks like we've successfully created the insurance database. And now we can actually move over to Eclipse and set up the database access in Eclipse using the data resources. Now back in Eclipse, first we will rename our project. Then we'll search for any of the relevant files where we missed the renaming. Now we'll do a Maven update. We'll make sure our project still runs. And that looks good. Now our next step, we have to set up a database connection to the MariaDB. Before we can create the database connection, we've got to make sure that our driver definitions is in place for Eclipse. So we will do Window Preferences. We will select Data Management Driver Definitions. And here we see that we don't have any JDBC jar drivers, so we're going to have to add it in our workspace. And it says the driver files are not specified, which means we've got to add our jar or zip files. The jar files that we previously downloaded for MariaDB. Now it says the driver class is missing, so we got to add that. Well, besides the required property in the driver definition missing value, we can also enter all of the values that are missing below. We will not be entering the user ID. Now we can click Apply and Close. And underneath Database Connection, we'll right-click and select New. Here we will enter the known username and password, which is root and secret. We will hold thumbs and test the connection. Maybe we'll just delete the insurance DB. Much better. And we'll select Finish. And here we have insight into our insurance database. So let's rename our database connection. Let's also save our password, which is secret. Now we can start running our SQL scripts. So I will create a directory underneath the resources where we're going to keep all our SQL scripts. Then I will copy in all of the SQL scripts required to set up our insurance administration database. These are all the SQL scripts which you will be able to download in the zip file. The first script is just to create the database. And we'll run and execute all. The status here says success. It shows us that it ran and succeeded. And when we refresh the catalogs, we can see there is an extra insurance_admin database. Now we will actually create the user that our application will use to connect to this database. Right click and execute all. It looks good, succeeded. Now we will create the insurance administration users. Now we expect an error here because we're going to try and alter a table before we've created it. So let's see what happens. We'll just continue on the error, continue on the error. So it's failed on the alter table insurance agent because the table doesn't exist. It failed on the drop of the table because it doesn't exist. It failed on the drop of the index because it doesn't exist. And then it failed on trying to drop the table because it doesn't exist. But then suddenly we have a success. We've got the table created and we got the index created. So let's run it again. Now we see everything succeeded because previously we've actually successfully created the tables. Now we can go ahead and create our administration users. So this means we've inserted all the administrator users. Now this insurance agents table, this is the meat of our application where we're going to list all the insurance agents. And before we can populate this, we got to populate things that it's dependent on, such as the state. So let's go to create states. Execute all. We'll continue through the error. And we'll see once again the first two failed, but the last three succeeded. So we'll run it again. Our states table has been created, so now we can populate it. And that looks good. All the states have been populated. So now we will create our insurance agents table. So the last three succeeded, so let's run it again. And it looks like everything is in place for our insurance agents with a primary key index and a foreign key to the state. And finally, we can run the insertion script of some of our insurance agents. And that looks good. That looks like we've set up and pre-populated our insurance agent database. Let's just check what happens if we do a select on this. Execute selected text. There is our result, the insurance agent stored in the table. And that concludes setting up and populating our insurance agent administration database tutorial.